There's nothing quite like sailing the seven seas, traveling to some far off land, drink in hand with your favorite tropical shirt without a care in the world. I don't know what it is about cruising that often brings either a more blissful or at times a more wild version of you out. As somebody that has worked on board cruise ships as a crew member and also sails as a passenger frequently, I can tell you that I've seen all walks of life. But one common factor always remains, and it's that people that sail as passengers often tend to leave their brains in the car prior to boarding the ship. Don't get me wrong, I don't see a problem whatsoever with wanting to unplug, unwind, and be a little carefree. However, that does not mean you get to disregard the rules, because the cruise lines won't be having any of it. You'll be off the ship before you could say drink package. This is why today I'm going to tell you 7 ways you can get kicked off a cruise ship. For number 1, we have disrespecting the captain or the crew. So I want to open up with this one because unfortunately I see this literally every single cruise. You have people that think they are the king or queen of the cruise ship because they booked the junior suite balcony. Listen, Karen and Ken, you cannot treat people how you want just because you were able to get a nice room on board. But there are so many others that are just like them. From not getting the exact animal folded towel that they wanted or getting cut off from drinking at the bar, I've seen passengers throw a bigger temper tantrum than Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You just have to understand that the crew on board are there to aid in giving you the ultimate experience of a lifetime. They're also there to make a living for themselves and their family. So this means they are not your servants or your peasants that you can treat or talk to any kind of way just because you feel like you're entitled to it or you want something. Now look at me. I am the captain now. What you gotta understand about cruise ships is that what the captain says goes. You're not on land anymore, you are in now his world. And if he wants you off the ship, trust me when I say you'll be walking the plank before you know it. Well, that's illegal, they can't do that anymore. But you will be getting kicked off of the ship if you disrespect him. Or her. Number 2, stealing. Now, one thing I personally like about sailing on board a cruise ship is that it is overall pretty carefree. You can go out, have a great time, have some drinks, turn up a little bit, get a little tipsy, and wander to some random hallway without getting robbed. Also, if you're at the pool, you can leave your stuff on the lounge chair and go take a dip in the tiny Virgin Voyages pool without having to worry about it getting taken, and oftentimes it's a nice feeling. But beware, regardless if you're on a cruise ship or on land, there are always going to be people around with some sticky fingers trying to steal somebody's new iPhone, or maybe they're in the spa getting a massage and they decided they want to steal some additional products so that they can exfoliate a little bit better. A word of advice for everybody, I'm sure you're already aware of it, but there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of cameras on board the cruise ship that will see everything. You will get caught, and when you do, you're going to be kicked off the cruise ship and probably banned for life. Number 3, disorderly conduct. I'll make this one simple. If you decide you want to get on a cruise ship and fight, throw some hands, fisticuffs, scrap, all because you brought the wrong woman on board the cruise ship and she decided to have a menage a trois with 2 people and not include you, well, that's your problem. I will just say that once you do that, you are going to be scrapping for some spare change on some random island trying to fly yourself home. Real quick, by the way, I do have to interject with a side note. I always tell people, because I think it's something they don't really think about, especially the people that don't cruise often, do not cruise with somebody you know for a fact you are not going to get along with, being stuck in a tiny room, or in worst case scenario, a giant cruise ship for an entire week. I see people take the wrong people on board. They take their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their mistress, and well, things tend to not work out, and just like that, you have ruined your cruise. Don't do it. Be selective about who you bring on a cruise because it's a special moment. And as they say, there are a couple ways to really get to know somebody, and that's by either living with them, you're doing that on the ship, or traveling with them. Anyway, of course, there are other forms of disorderly conduct that you could participate in, which I hope you don't. You can throw something off the ship, and depending on what it is, you can get in a lot of trouble. You throw a baby overboard, you're going to get arrested. Please don't do that. But also back in 2019, there was a man named Nick Nadiv. He was sailing on what was at the time the largest cruise ship on planet Earth, Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas. Him and his buddies the night prior had been partying, turning up, doing a little bit of drinking, and they didn't sleep, and they were still drunk from the night prior. They they thought it'd be a good idea for Nick, for the gram, to put on social media to jump from his 11th deck balcony into the ocean while the ship was docked in Nassau, Bahamas. I know, dumb idea. So Nick decided to do it, and thankfully he didn't die or get arrested. However, he was banned for life, kicked off the cruise ship, and he had to pay his way home. Just don't do stupid stuff like that. Number 4, getting sick. Okay, so this one is a little complicated to try to sail and navigate through, because oftentimes this couldn't even be your own fault. You just happen to catch a case of the neurovirus, or even more modern times, COVID during the pandemic, and now, well, you have a situation. But the problem is, if you get too sick, you will unfortunately have to be kicked off the cruise ship. Not as a punishment, but for your own health and safety and well-being, because unfortunately, no cruise ship has all the technology that your modern hospital does in order to take care of you should you need additional medical assistance. However, there are sicknesses that you could cause yourself. For example, I've seen it a couple times where people got alcohol poisoning. I will just say that, guys, you have to watch what you drink on board the ship. Watch how much you drink. Be careful, because you drink too much, you're going to be paying $20,000 for a helicopter. The Coast Guard has to come get you, take you to a hospital, and then you got to get your stomach pumped. It's not pretty. Number 5, breaking quarantine. Now, this one is your fault. If you get sick, and especially now during the pandemic and COVID times, you have to quarantine in a room for the remainder of your cruise for the health and safety of not only for you, but for everyone else. And trust me, I get it. Whenever I worked on the ship, we had a neurovirus outbreak. I was quarantined in my room for a week, and I almost drove myself absolutely insane. You have this urge to want to break out and be free, even if you are just sick. Now, the problem with that is that if you do decide to break the quarantine rules and you're now going to put everybody at risk, the cruise line is not only going to kick you off the ship, they are going to ban you for life. Number 6, buying drinks for minors. Okay, I know this is a very complicated and tough one to figure out. Not really. Guys, don't buy drinks for minors. I do understand full well, depending on where you come from, depending on where you are at that point in time with cruise ship and the destinations and ports that you visit, things could drastically change. For example, right now, I am in Europe, and the drinking age in Europe is 18 years old. People have no problem with it. However, over in the United States, it's 21. Now, if you are in the United States and you want to buy somebody a drink that happens to be underage, well, you could potentially, obviously, get kicked off the ship, but also see some jail time. And that's not something that anybody really should be dealing with. Just don't do it at all. If you want to hang out, let's say if I'm with a couple of girls, I'm going to ask for their age. And if they can't give me ID, if they look young, I'm not buying them a drink. It just ain't gonna happen. I've told this story before, like 2 years ago, but back when I worked on board the NCL Escape as a crew member, there was a cruise director that unfortunately decided to buy some minors a drink. Now, he didn't really pay attention to it at the time. He just saw some cute girls and figured he might be able to, well, you know, do the bed wrestle thing with them if he got lucky enough. And both of them, of course, with consent, were all on the same page and same amount of alcohol consumption. Lo and behold, to him, they were guests, and he comes to find out from the bartender they were all underage. So the bartender reported it to the officers on board. Officers come over to the bar that we were at, and, well, he gets in a lot of trouble. And he decided to get in even more trouble by punching one of the security guards for some reason and then running off to his cabin thinking nobody was going to find out where he was. But like I said, on board the ship, there are cameras everywhere. He was not only fired from his job, but he was banned from sailing on that cruise line for the rest of his life. Now, before we get to our final way that you can get kicked off a cruise ship, I hope you guys are enjoying. And if you do, if you would support the channel by hitting that like button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, share this video, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to book a cruise so you can see people being dumb and getting kicked off the ship, hopefully it's not you, make sure to check out our travel agent partner touring plans. They will give you the vacation of a lifetime. That way you don't even feel the need to break any of these rules. Link in the description box below. Number 7, incorrect or invalid documents. Now, you're probably wondering, how in the heck is this going to happen? Whenever you go on a cruise ship, don't they have to send all of your paperwork to some like government agency? Well, technically, yes, but there's so many different types of paperwork that the cruise lines have to go through where things could potentially get lost in the mix, or somebody could kind of game the system in order to get on board a cruise ship with the potential privileges that it is that they want. Last year in 2021, there was a woman that was sailing on board a Royal Caribbean ship. She is now known in the cruise world as cruise ship ship, Karen. She decided to go on the ship, and at the time there were a lot of rules involving COVID and the pandemic, as we all know. And Royal Caribbean, which I thought was a pretty stupid idea at the time, decided to kind of separate everybody from who is fully vaccinated, who is not fully vaccinated, to sail on the ship. And they would decide the differences between the two as far as who would get the privileges, being the fully vaccinated, by having the vaccinated people wear purple rubber wristbands. Like I said, even now, it still sounds very dumb. So the woman submitted her documents stating she was vaccinated and tested and all that jazz, and she got a purple rubber wristband, and she's enjoying her life being in the vaccinated areas on board, when lo and behold, apparently she wasn't vaccinated, and it became this whole little fiasco, this whole situation and drama of her having to get tested, and then her testing positive and not being vaccinated, and one thing led to another. She got very aggressive with the crew, and just like that, she was kicked off of the ship. And well, it was just a very unpleasant situation. So moral of the story, follow the rules, don't do anything stupid, otherwise you'll get kicked off of the cruise ship. Anyway, there are a million other ways to get kicked off cruise ships. Do any of you guys happen to know any of those ways? Or maybe you've seen somebody break some of the rules that I talked about in this video, same situations. Let me know in the comment section below. Just know that I appreciate and love every single one of you guys. Hit the like button on that way out, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.